Yes, your refund will arrive by Friday. Confident, grammatically perfect, schema valid, every field present, every type correct, and completely impossible because the actual policy says 5 to 10 business days, and everything we have built this in series so far would let this answer through. By the end of this design walkthrough, you will exactly know that why the confident well from answer also can be factually wrong. Quick question before we go any further. Could you have caught that? Not with a type checker, not with an enum, not with any tool this series has built so far. Genuinely, where would your code have caught it? Hold that thought. You will have the exact answer in about few minutes. This is the design walk of pattern 04. Mental model only. No code, just a design walkthrough. If you have been following the series, the next few slides will recap what we have covered so far in pattern 01 to pattern 00. Now, just a quick recap. In pattern 01, we started with the problem statement of our customer Mike, who has asked a simple question that what is the status of my payment? AI gave a completely fluent answer, which was fabricated because the model have used this training data instead of real transaction. What fix we have applied in the pattern 01? Instead of directly asking question to AI model, we retrieve the Mike's actual transaction detail first and use them as a prompt to augment and then generate the response out of this. Hence, the pattern 10 says that look the real data before generating anything. Now, what was the issue with the pattern 01? If the retrieval itself find the document which is not right, then conclusion may not be the wrong. That's the judgment problem, not the retrieval one. What we have covered in the pattern 02. One of the second team, this few team has plugged in and they thought that we can reuse what has been built for the payment team. And AI was crashed because it was not validating anything. And that was the fix we applied. Validate before we ask AI to render anything. Hence, every check or every input goes through some check before it gives to AI. What was left open there? And the contract or only check the SIPs and the field type, is it string or not? It doesn't check whether the real data is present really qualified onto what is expected or not. In the pattern 03 on the series, what we have covered is the response part of it. Let's say if AI responds back that, okay, when Mike asks the question, the response come back, oh, it's still being looked at. It's not been done. So, so there we are ensuring that when before the response generate, we validate or constant at the source itself so that when we ask an AI to respond back, as part of the call itself, we send the constant what we are looking for, right? So that's the thing we have covered in C. Now, four pieces of this problem, what Simon says, right? So first one is pattern 03. We proved a response was schema valid. It was enum and it was fully into the enum we have given. A wrong schema will never respond back to the customer. And the model generating the draft has no outside check on itself. It's confident because it's generating, not because it's verified. As what has been surfaced out when Mike asks when will my refund arrive, the model says by Friday. Sound helpful and concrete. The policy says 5 to 10 business days. Friday is 2 days away. The model didn't check it. It just answered. And the root cause in one sentence. The generator and the judge are in the same call. A model cannot evaluate its own output from the outside. Remember that question from the opening? Could you have caught this? here is the honest answer. No, not with anything we have built so far in the series. And what is the fix in 3 words? Separate the judge. Now, what is the judge? Judge is another call. So let's see the whole pipeline. How does it look like? So in terms of the overall approach, when Mike asks a question, we do the validation, we do contract validation, we do the data augmentation, and the first call gives us the response back, and we call it a generate, which get the draft answer. Now, as part of the pattern 04, the judge comes in a picture, which I make another call to the AI again, and this time it takes the input from a generate what it generated, and it gives the verdict true or false. Does the response matches what has been asked by generator? If it matches, it responds back to the customer or to AI upstream system. If not, it make another conditional clause 3, which takes what was the verdict the judge AI generator has given and give it to the file one more time, right? Now just to loop through how does the request look like. So when Mike asks the question in the stage 1, it goes to a first AI call, which in this case, because we are covering the AWS part, we are saying the Converse API we're calling. The system answers using policy in the transition context, and that's the draft answer. We make another judge call again, same Converse API, and we get the response which is grounded. And now, considering in this case, we took an input from the first generated AI outcome, the answer would be grounded or not. We validate on a some score. Let's say if it is 0.8% matching, then the response has been be respond back to the delivered to the mic on his chatbot or whatever way he's communicating or talking to the customer. If it's not, then it goes back to another stage 3 of Converse API call. And then final answer will be respond back. Why separate judge? Is it not overrated? So there are a lot of studies has been done on this thought process. One of those is around LLM evaluators, where ChatGPT 4 was accurate, 73% accurate at recognizing its own writing versus other models. Right? Even there are examples where, like Google DeepMind, it also uses other models to validate what the response the first time the AI has generated and ensure the judge part is always there. But I'm gonna teach those references also for you to go through into detail, right? Even the data talk, they also have talks about the product hallucination detection, where the RAG-based system has been covered up. It's quite a nice blog to read through it. Where they give an example, they how to detect the hallucination, whereby using the judge pattern. Okay, quick gut check before the full menu option. The judge you just watched used exactly one criterion: grounded. Yes or no? What's the one thing a single binary judge call still can't tell you? Take a real guess. It can't tell you how wrong or wrong in that way. Was it the policy was wrong? Was the tone wrong? Grounding was not correct? On what basis he rejected the answer? It's just say, giving you the criteria. Hence, there are different landscape variation exist in terms of implementing the pattern 04. The one which we are considering a single inline judge. So basically, the judge itself also another conversion API called to Bedrock, which is synchronously call and respond back to this one. The other options is the multi-criteria judge, where we use multiple API converse API call and look for a specific kind of a verdict in terms of the tone, completeness, type, and everything. There's another is chain of thought judge, which also do a reasoning step by step on the verdict and then tell us that. Then there is another option of batch evaluation, which is offered by the Bedrock Model Evaluation, which can also be used. As I said, in case of the Bedrock Guardrail, also offers some additional options which we'll talk and cover it out here. Okay. Now, the test section. Why does option A actually win? Not just what we have built. The design question is precise. How do you get per request output on a factual grounding before delivery? Right? We have chosen the Inline just the reason being the mic was waiting there to get his answer on a chatbot, and it has to be synchronously respond back. That's the reason we have blocked the delivery until we get a response back. Although it has a more latency, but it all depends on judge quality and prompt. If its answer gives out. The other options are that if there's a requirement where you want to go through some kind of analysis of a large data set which required a hourly or nightly or batch kind of thing, then you can use the option by AWS called create evaluation job. It might not be good for minutes or millisecond response, it's good for hours and more than that. The other options are which AWS provide is the sidecar container where you can install those guardrail grounding as sidecar. It doesn't require any kind of prompting on the fly or needs to maintain, but it doesn't support the use case we are talking about here for Mike because this is not a good fit for the conversational QA, right? Now, just to take you through some of the options we already talked about. So this is the one I mentioned earlier that we judge would be another API call, right? So it is be low complexity, double call. The multi-criteria judge where you just not waiting for a single true or false answer and you really need to know what part the answer of the generator is not right or matching, then you can use multi-criteria judge. The chain of thought judge again, it is just to be very specific on each kind of criteria you're setting up. Batch evaluation is good for the job where you need doesn't need answers on minute or second. You need beyond that. Then there are options like Cardinal context grounding. So this is just a sidecar container, and to reduce hallucination or some kind of a wording, those you can be installed. Self-reflection is another option to implement it where the same generator is work as a judge also, but how easy it would be or how trustful that answer would be is not that you can't judge your own work. The another option is ragas, which we'll cover into the upcoming patterns as well. This is another example, which is where you can use the external API call and the benchmark one. I have an example there, which has been will be I will go through it on once. The last one is the human in the loop, where we send it to human to review before respond back. Obviously, this is not good fit for the real-time scenarios or near-real-time use cases. Okay, just to cover up quickly, right? I already talked about single inline judge, per request grounding gate before delivery is hard requirement. This is good where you need to separate score for grounding and policy compliance, and each one is scored. Chain of thought up is good if you really want to have a regulatory or auditing requirement. Batch evaluation mode I talked about. Then quartile context grounding. This is again another where single turn rack grounding with zero prompting comes in the picture. Same reflection, it is the same. Ragas is the nightly patch date monitoring cross rack pipeline. And this is quite a good one. I would request or recommend you to go through this Ragas also, which has been given very nicely. How does it work? Then GWAL is there, which you can go through it. Human in the loop we already cover. So just to see if we are considering a scenario where there's a requirement of a batch kind of a scenario where you want to generate the responses, right? So we can actually use the Bedrock API call called create evaluation job, and then it goes to Bedrock evaluation managed service LLM as a judge. Also, there's another one. It can generate the report whatever you're looking for it, right? Okay, if you really want to deploy this whole pattern 04 into production, what does it take? So one of the option is that you remember when we started that there was a one lambda which was working as a generator calling the Bedrock API call. In this case, we'll have a two lambda, sequential lambda, and waiting, and one working as a generator, another working as a judge, and waiting for the response. And if you use Nova Macro, the cost would be too less, right? As I said, the first one which built the inline generator, judge and rewrite. This another option we have is called prompt foo, which is quite interesting one. I would request you to go through and read through it. This is kind of a what the prompt foo does. They this is kind of a options it provides you us to make a reliable prompts model It also evaluate your responses and it scores automatically what kind of response it is. There's a very good example given there, which I would ask you to have a look. So let me quickly showcase this out. So the same prompt, you are a e-commerce chat assistant for a shoes company. Answer this question in this format. When the answer comes, it just passes 40% passing rate. But if the same prompt, if you put like you are a smart, bubbly customer service app for a shoe company, and if you see that answer, it passes 80% results, right? So this is also another example or service we can use prompt, and it's like an open source CLI. You can install it out when you are into implement. Now, just to before we close out, right? Let's see if you really understood what are the key takeaways from this. What's the judge correction hint and why does it matter? If you can answer the question, which I think already covered it out, that judge is required to ensure that whatever answer comes out, that answers is matching and verdicts are as we expected. You can also answer why can't guardrail counting check replace the inline judge here? Because guardrail counting text counting is not good for a real-time use cases. Why does confidence mean in the judge response? The confidence decide that the answer which we got from the generator, does it really trustful and matching out onto the scale? Why is a self-reflection same model ever itself a bigger alternative? Because you can't judge your own work. Being a thing, you always need a different reviewer. And what's in the audit trail and why would a compliance team especially care about it? This is, as I said, it's a requirement for measures. Okay, now just to before we close it out, everything in the one deck, which we'll also cover into our cloud to island.dev, right? Okay, one sentence. If you forget everything else, pattern 03 make sure that the model cannot lie about the shape of the answer. Pattern 04 make sure that it cannot lie about the truth of it. And now in the pattern 05, the judge is only good as that how much context is coming out with the input. If input the model which is referring the data, if data itself is the stale, then it doesn't matter how many judge we put into the system, the answer would be the response would be always be not be hallucinated or not factful or not right, matching out to what we're looking for. And that's where our pattern 05 comes in a picture, which covers us the real data which can trust on. And if one more thing before we close up, if you join or watch this video first time in the series, then I would request you to go to cloud to AI learn.dev and catch up the pattern 01 through 03, which gives you a leans on all three of them. The first pattern 01 talks about the fabricated answer problem. The second talks about the contract, and third talks about the enum. And and it will land a lot faster once you have seen where each of those left evident. And if you came in right at the start wondering whether you could have caught Mike's false promise yourself, you know exactly why the answer was no and exactly what closes the gap. That's the whole point of watching one of these before you go build one. Thank you.